All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to the Dance Network podcast. Your host, Jonathan Chatham, sitting here next to me, Miss Samantha, who's been delighting us with wonderful experiences and information, and we got to dig a little deeper. So we're just going to jump right back into it. If you saw last week's episode, get ready for this one. All right, Miss Samantha, we left it off kind of going from the childhood experience through Nutcracker, learning how to grow from, either making mistakes along the way or not getting the part that you maybe wanted, and, just kind of having that perseverance. So I think what's often missed going from childhood to young adult is realizing how important that perseverance is. So can you shed a little light into, what it's taking you to continue to maintain a passion and love for dance into your adult years?
Oh, yes. I would say whenever I was leaving high school, I had a knee injury.
Okay. Ooh.
Yes. And so along with that comes the questioning of whether you would want to continue dancing or what else you want to do. And I think for me, keeping my passion going was being able to find other avenues that dance was used in. So musical theater became a huge aspect. And the more I traveled and the more I got to meet new people and just see different areas of dance, it kept that passion going. And so it was musical theater, then it became Pilates, and then it transformed into wanting to know more about just kinesiology in general.
Yeah.
And then just continue my Shaketi training, then finding progressive ballet technique. I mean, there's just so many areas that dance touches into. And I think the more you stay connected, the easier it is to find where you kind of want to belong.
Yeah, it's almost like you're discovering the artist within. It is. That's kind of like, that's our main stake of like what we embody, our trademark of what we stand for. And it's crazy how it all comes back to that.
It does.
Even more like the more I talk to people, they're like, I just really discovered who I was within. And I was like, oh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And where did you do it? At the studio. Where did you do it? In dance classes. Where did you do it? With mentors that were believing in me and supporting me. So, for those that want to kind of pursue adulthood dance career, what's some good steps to offer?
I would say definitely get connected with your instructors. Not only are they great mentors, but because the dance world is so connected, they will probably know people to introduce you to, or places you could go, especially if you're going to college, what dance teams, or if you're moving, they can tell you dance studios in the area, or just the more connections you make. And funny enough, one of the best connections I made was when I was taking dance at a studio.
Okay.
And that's kind of how I ended up here.
Yeah.
So the connections you make at the dance studio will last you a lifetime.
It is wild how it all kind of comes together.
It does. But yeah, I think the more you just keep talking to people and don't be afraid to reach out and just get information from anyone and everyone.
Well, it's hard, and I got to give credit to this generation, man. They are having to face pressures we didn't have to when we were kids.
Yes.
We didn't have social media.
No.
So you're like, if you thought you were awesome and your friends were like, yeah, you're awesome. You believed it, and maybe enough to get through the areas where you weren't that awesome, But now I really feel for these young girls because it's already, the comparison has always been notoriously hard for young girls becoming young women, in that there's always images being thrown at you that you're not good enough, you're not fit enough, you're not this enough, you're not dressed in clothes enough. And now it's kind of gotten into all the extracurriculars where maybe you get online and you see somebody who's really amazing and you are like, oh, like she's 15, she's already doing this and I'm not there. Yeah. And it creates kind of like a false sense of comparison.
Yes.
Because everybody's journey is different.
So different.
And I think what kids have to get back to is focusing on what their journey is.
Yes.
Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Yeah. So it is wonderful when you can build a community of support around, yourself as a dancer going into adulthood, because you're right. The network, our network, dance industry as a whole, like there's so many connections, And, the one thing I really don't understand is when people push for their kids to develop an ego.
Yeah.
Can we get a little real here?
We can.
Okay, let's go there, because I'm like, there needs to be some accountability in this, because where is this stemming from? Is this coming from the student? Is this coming from a parent? Is this coming from an experience or a cultured environment? But like, I do not see the benefit of developing an ego.
There's not.
Yeah.
There really isn't. Especially in the dance world, having an ego is definitely not going to get you where you want to be.
Yeah. It's short-term lived, because, when you think about it, you've got great talent. I mean, some people are so amazing, and you got to have that confidence. You got to have that, sense of self-worth of like, hey, I'm great at what I do. But whenever I see dancers going into adulthood and they still have this like ego where like, I'm better than, that is so hard to work with.
Yeah. And honestly, in the adult world, and I would say even now, for students, nobody wants to work with an ego.
Yeah.
You want to find that person who is lifting others up, who wants to learn from the person who's leading, because then you know that you can actually work with them.
Yeah. Well, and it affects the chemistry on stage.
So,
obviously you've danced with some egos, right?
My fair few.
What's some of the hardships of that? Because I'm like, there's a lack of trust, because that person's putting themselves above you. And if you're doing a dance, it involves everybody. From choreographers to the stage managers to the people who are on the stage dancing to you trusting your teammates. So, this is a tough pitfall that kids fall into.
It is.
And sometimes it's fueled by parents, right?
Sadly.
Yeah.
It is.
I'm like, wait a minute. Do you want this more than your kid, or does your kid want this more than you?
Yes. And I think that's where the comparison really becomes a thing, because as much as we would love for our kids not to listen or understand everything that we say, if you're comparing your kid to another dancer, they're also going to begin making that comparison, and the things that you're putting down of another, they're going to then start seeing those and hearing those. And if we want the cycle to end, it has to start from
it starts here. It starts in the studio. And I mean, obviously, my position is to edify, to build up, to inspire. Not to intimidate with fear or insecurity. And I feel like it's really division. And when you grow into an adulthood and you have like, well, step on anybody, get to do whatever it takes, that cutthroat mindset, you ruin and burn a lot of bridges. And because dance is built with bridges, you become an island that eventually you're by yourself.
And it's hard.
And it's like, where did that come from? So you have to go like rewind it all the way back to the beginning and say, how were you developing as a kid? How did you become a young adult? And then what are the actions you're taking as an adult to represent what you love and, that hunger to go further. Right? Yeah. So, hey, we got to be real here. Okay. Like we want this industry to heal and become whole. But man, when you see it, it's ugly. Then when you see kids who are like excellence with humility, oh my gosh.
Yes.
I mean, what a difference.
Couldn't ask for anything more than that.
And I've loved to hear some of our kids who've graduated, gone into college experiences, and the professors telling them like, wow, oh my gosh, like you're so good, but you're so nice. And I'm like, that's normal, guys.
Right.
Like we should be kind. We're all in this together. We sing these songs about it. We dance together, but like, there is, I think, a misplaced understanding of like, be competitive because you're hungry for it, but don't be destructive or divisive.
Right.
So as an adult dancer, now adult teacher, what are some of the things that you're doing differently than maybe you received as a kid dancer?
Oh, okay.
We're going there.
Yeah. I think I try to make personal connections with all of my students. They're not just one of however many. They are an individual, and each one of them has their own things that they're working through or working towards. And so I find especially in my classes, that the more I get to know them and the more I get to know their parents and kind of figure out what that dynamic is like, I'm then able to kind of teach them with an approach that's going to benefit them in the long run.
Yeah.
It's not just a blanketed, you're doing this and this is how it's going to be.
Like a one size fits all model.
Yeah,
It's not.
It's just, I'm not putting it as saying like you're doing this, no ifs, ands, or buts. It's more about them and what can I do to help them be what they want it to be.
Yeah.
And kind of just foster that for them.
No, that's great. I mean, again, that's that change that begins here.
Right.
So like, I feel like every time I talk to artists, they give me like their scare stories of like, oh my gosh, stuff they've been through. And they're like, I will never let this happen to the kids I serve ever.
Right.
Never, 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 never. And that's good because that's how we create and catapult change into this industry. And that's something we've always stood for is like, you know, these kids come first in our hearts of how we serve. And, you know, it is personal.
Very.
It is so personal. And I know you've spent time with so many kids. I mean, gosh, over the last decade, watching them grow, and it's wild.
Yeah, I had the first one this last year graduate from high school.
Yeah.
I know that hit, and I was like, oh man, okay.
Yeah. But like those experiences live with you. So again, it comes back to let's give these kids excellence in dance. Let's tailor it to their right needs of where they're at, and let's make sure that they become great people, not just great dancers only on stage.
Right.
And I keep hitting this point. Like, I think it's great if you're awesome for 5 minutes, but you know what's even better is if you're like just as awesome off stage in the class with your mentors, with everybody, because that is something like a teacher just craves, right? Like that student who's just like, I'm here to learn, you know?
Yes, when they come in, they're ready and they're just soaking up everything you have to say and just really being like active in the class. That really fuels a teacher. And they're just like, okay, let's go.
Well, let's dig a little deeper. So like as a teacher, like what else do you want to see from your students? You know, if they're listening today or, you know, out there somewhere, you know, what would you like to see them more of?
I would love to see them basically play the part.
Yeah.
Depending on what class you're in, dress to impress, make those adjustments so that you really feel like that style of dancer. And as much as we love our friends and the connections we've made within the room, I think giving your undivided attention to not just the instructor, but also to what the instructor is trying to instill in the class that day, and then really try to just go after that. The more active and present in the class, that's really where they're going to see the growth. And then once myself and pretty much any teacher I talk to will say, like, that's when they know they can really help somebody.
No, I love it.
So we're looking for that person who's just going to try.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It probably will never be perfect in class.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because in class, that's where we want you to learn. But it's the willingness to kind of be that blank canvas and learn for that day.
No, that's beautiful. And that's, again, it's all life skill.
Oh,
so you demonstrate that in class, no matter what and where you go in life, you will have that mindset with you.
Yes.
And again, you know, there's a lot of different things that are going on in society right now. And I'm like, let's hold fast. Let's create the anchor points for these kids to grab hold of. And it's a tremendous trust process for us to have students that parents trust us with.
Yes.
And I'm always like, hey, ask the hard questions. Transparency is absolutely what we're about. Yes. And we want to know, like, hey, how we can better serve, how we can better help. And like you said earlier, there's kids are going through different parts of the journey. So we know how to tailor it towards where they're at. And life happens. And what better way than to take dance as that outlet to express yourself, to connect with people who love you, and build that like positive culture. And man, culture, that is everything to us, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, if you're here, we want you to be here because you want to be here, not because you're playing a game to get something in exchange, like because you love dance, because you want it. And I know every teacher that's on our team, especially, like they want to take them even further, but there is a patience to say, I'll take you as far as you're ready.
Right.
And I think in today's culture, everybody wants to move so fast. I want to be at this level now. And it's like, well, we could push you there, but if you don't have the mental capacity, you'll fall apart.
Correct.
you know?
It's that instant gratification that you just can't get.
And that's something Point still holds over.
Right.
Like there is no instant it is deferred enjoyment, right? Like
Yes.
you have to really wait to get to the age where your body can actually handle it. You have to wait to get the technique to be able to represent it, and then to master it is just that elusive pursuit that you'll always be chasing to do better and better and better.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. Well, this is great. I'm enjoying kind of digging a little more into your story. I think, any other thoughts towards parents, just helping them like understand whether they're new or returning, maybe they're on the competitive teams, maybe they're looking at ballet company, from your perspective as a lifelong dancer and now dance educator, what else do you want to tell them? They're all out there.
Yeah. I would just say the more experiences, the better. Lots of times you'll see dancers really get stuck in one style or one avenue, and they don't have the opportunity to branch out and experience new things.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just encourage everyone to look at those classes that are in the studio that maybe you haven't tried.
Yeah.
And try them and really see what it is about all the different styles that you enjoy. That way you can really find what speaks to you. And if you're on a team and maybe it's your first time on a team, or
well, you got some first timers this year,
I do.
right?
Yeah, I've got a good group of first time students on a team. I think find what it is about performing that you love.
Yeah.
And I think that will definitely carry you a long way. We've got dancers on competitions. We've got dancers doing just performances for the community, as well as our ballet company. And they all have something unique that they can offer. And honestly, I just love getting to have that team and build them up and kind of help them find where they're going to go.
Yeah.
And like once you kind of see that spark hit, then it's really fun to help foster that. And then you get the parents involved and you're like, hey, I can see this in them. I think this would be great. And all the teachers really love giving suggestions on like things for them to do and for the parents to get involved in that training process.
No, it's great.
So,
well, I love it. I think, again, we got a great year ahead that's coming, and, it's important the parents understand kind of the heart and dimension which we all serve. And I will say this, like I've known you for so long, and you're as authentic as they come, both on stage and off. And it's been a joy to work, aside with you and just watch you grow into the different positions and things you've led within the company and dance. And again, to protect kids from pitfalls that you had to navigate.
yes.
And I think that's the joy we get to give. It's kind of like we've got this torch and this light of life with dance, and there's some dark spots out there we want to stay away from, but we don't run away from fear. We tackle things with faith and with that like sense of purpose and self-worth.
Yep.
And when you share that with somebody else, oh my gosh, it's like you said, the spark comes alive.
Oh yeah.
And I love it when I see a kid's like, it's their year, when it's their year of that, like they come alive.
Yep.
They love it. And then they put the work in.
Yeah, and they just start going after it.
Yeah.
And I think as a teacher, obviously I want them to all find what makes them a great dancer. But honestly, I had a student this year who texted me and told me that dance wasn't just the dance studio, and that going on summer break was sad because she wanted to be with her family.
Ooh, there's a little golden nugget. Dance studio, find your family. Find your people. It's so crucial. And I think, again, with community comes consistency and support. And that is a great indicator of how kids will grow and become successul. So wonderful. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Samantha. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll hit the pause button there until we can get back. I feel like we barely scratched the surface.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, we'll have to hit this up again. So
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining the Dance Studio Network podcast. Again, I'm your host, Jonathan Chatham. Until next time, keep working, keep searching, keep finding what it is that you love about dance, and put the work in. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.